Hi Adams. So for today's CKLA lesson, we are going to have a lot of vocabulary. So I'm going to go over that first, and then we're going to begin a new personal narrative, which deals with a lot of illness, sickness, and being in a hospital. So a lot of our vocab has to do with that. First one is virus, and that is a tiny creature that infects a living organism with a disease. So a lot of times when we get sick, a virus has infected us and made us sick. So that's a noun. Next is contagious. That's an adjective, and it means that it's able to be passed from one person to another. So someone that's contagious can get somebody else sick. Vaccine is a noun, and that's a medicine that's given to prevent catching a disease. So we have a lot of vaccines for different sicknesses so that we can't get that specific virus or disease. Crippled is an adjective, and that means disabled or unable to walk normally. Homecoming is a noun, and that is a celebration that happens in the fall at many American high schools and colleges, and this is when people come back home to their high school that they graduated from to watch the football game and see all of their old friends. It's a big event. A float is a decorated sculpture or scene in a parade, and that's a noun. So like those big Macy's Day parade floats that we see on TV if you watch that. Buckled is a verb, and that means bent or collapsed. Limp is an adjective, and that means wilted or not firm. So like kind of a limp flower would kind of look like this. So it's not firm, it's kind of wilted over. Woozy is an adjective, and that means dizzy or weak. A spasm is a violent muscle contraction somewhere in your body. So that's a noun. It's something that happens in your muscle. You might have experienced this if your leg kind of falls asleep or something, or if it just moves the wrong way, and we'll explain more about this in the chapter. A spinal tap, that's a noun, and it's a test that doctors can take when someone is sick, and they take fluid from around the spinal cord, which is in your back. So they're testing that fluid to see what's going on in your body. A diagnosis is a noun, and that is a specific disease or other cause of an illness. So that is what is wrong with someone when they are sick. To contaminate is to infect. It's a verb. Glisten is a verb. It means to shine. And an isolation ward is a section of a hospital where infectious patients stay. So if someone has a contagious disease, they're going to stay in this isolation ward so they can't get anyone else sick. So that is a noun, it's a place. And then the last one is chronological, and that's an adjective, and it talks about being organized in an order of time. So first this happened, then this happened, last this happened. It's in the order of when it happened. Okay, now we are going to read. So this is from a text, Small Steps, The Year I Got Polio, and we are going to read Chapter 1, The Diagnosis, Part 1, and this is by Peg Carrot. Peg Carrot is an award-winning author of books for children. When she was 12 years old, she contracted polio, which resulted in a long hospital stay and rehabilitation. But she finally made an almost complete recovery. Small Steps is her memoir of that time in her life. You will read several excerpts from Small Steps. The Diagnosis is the first chapter in the book, and subsequent chapter numbers reflect those in the original text. I never thought it would happen to me. Before a polio vaccine was developed, I knew that polio killed or crippled thousands of people, mainly children, each year. But I never expected it to invade my body, to paralyze my muscles. Polio is a highly contagious disease. In 1949, there were 42,033 cases reported in the United States. One of those was a 12-year-old girl in Austin, Minnesota. Peg Schultz, me. My ordeal began on a Friday early in September. In school that morning, I glanced at the clock often, eager for the homecoming parade at 4 o'clock. As a 7th grader, it was my first chance to take part in the homecoming fun. For a week, my friends and I had spent every spare moment working on the 7th grade float, and we were sure it would win first prize. My last class before lunch was chorus. I loved to sing, and we were practicing a song whose lyrics are the inscription on the Statue of Liberty. Usually the words, "Give me you're tired, you're poor," brought goosebumps to my arms, but on homecoming day I was distracted by a twitching muscle in my left thigh. As I sang, a section of my blue skirt popped up and down as if jumping beans lived in my leg. I pressed my hand against my thigh, trying to make the muscle be still, but it leapt and jerked beneath my fingers. I stretched my leg forward and rotated the ankle, twitch, twitch. Next, I tightened my leg muscles for a few seconds and then relaxed them. Nothing helped. The bell rang. When I started toward my locker, my legs buckled as if I had nothing but cotton inside my skin. I collapsed, scattering my books on the floor. Someone yelled, "Peg fainted," but I knew I had not fainted because my eyes stayed open and I was conscious. I sat on the floor for a moment. "Are you all right?" my friend Karen asked as she helped me stand up. "Yes, I don't know what happened." "You look pale." "I'm fine," I insisted. "Really." I put my books in my locker and went home for lunch, as I did every day. 2 days earlier, I'd gotten a sore throat and headache. Now I also felt weak and my back hurt. What rotten timing, I thought, to get sick on homecoming day. Although my legs felt wobbly, I walked the 12 blocks home. I didn't tell my mother about the fall or about my headache and other problems because I knew she would make me stay home. I was glad to sit down to eat lunch. Maybe, I thought, I should not have stayed up so late the night before. Or maybe I'm just hungry. When I reached for my milk, my hand shook so hard I couldn't pick up the glass. I grasped it with both hands. They trembled so badly that milk sloshed all over the side. Mother put her hand on my forehead. "You feel hot," she said. "You're going straight to bed." It was a relief to lie down. I wondered why my back hurt. I hadn't lifted anything heavy. I couldn't imagine why I was so tired either. I felt as if I had not slept in days. I fell asleep right away and woke up 3 hours later with a stiff neck. My back hurt even more than before, and now my legs ached as well. Several times I had painful muscle spasms in my legs and toes. The muscles tightened until my knees bent and my toes curled, and I couldn't straighten my legs or toes until the spasms passed. I looked at the clock. The homecoming parade started in 15 minutes. "I want to go to the parade," I said. Mother stuck a thermometer in my mouth. It said 102 and called the doctor. The 7th grade float would have to win first place without me. I went back to sleep. All right, so this is part 2, same chapter, the diagnosis. Dr. Wright came, took my temperature, listened to my breathing, and talked with Mother. Mother sponged my forehead with a cold cloth. I dozed, woke, and slept again. At midnight, I began to vomit. Mother and Dad helped me to the bathroom. We all assumed I had the flu. Dr. Wright returned before breakfast the next morning and took my temperature again. "Still 102, he said. He helped me sit up with my feet dangling over the side of the bed. He tapped my knees with his rubber mallet. This was supposed to make my legs jerk. They didn't. They hung limp and unresponsive. I was too woozy from pain and fever to care. He ran his fingernail across the bottom of my foot from the heel to the toes. It felt awful, but I couldn't pull my foot away. He did the same thing on the other foot with the same effect. I wished he would leave me alone so I could sleep. "I need to do a spinal tap on her," he told my parents. "Can you take her to the hospital right away?" When Dr. Wright got the results, he asked my parents to go to another room. While I dozed again, he told them the diagnosis, and they returned alone to tell me. Mother held my hand. "You have polio," Dad said, as he stroked my hair back from my forehead. You will need to go to a special hospital for polio patients in Minneapolis. Polio? Panic shot through me and I began to cry. How could I have polio? I didn't know anyone who had the disease. Where did the virus come from? How did it get in my body? I didn't want to have polio. I didn't want to leave my family and go to a hospital 100 miles away. As we drove home to pack, I sat slumped in the back seat. How long will I have to stay in the hospital? I asked. Until you're well, Mother said. When we got home, I was not allowed to leave the car, not even to say goodbye to Grandpa, who lived with us, or to BJ, my dog. We could not take a chance of spreading the deadly virus. Our orders were strict. I must contaminate no one. Karen called, Mother said when she returned with a suitcase. The 7th grade float won second prize. I was too sick and frightened to care. Grandpa waved at me through the car window. Tears glistened on his cheeks, and I had never seen my grandfather cry. Later that morning, I walked into the isolation ward of the Sheltering Arms Hospital in Minneapolis and went to bed in a private room. No one was allowed in except the doctors and nurses, and they wore masks. My parents stood outside on the grass, waving bravely and blowing kisses through the window. Exhausted, feverish, and scared, I fell asleep. When I woke up, I was paralyzed. All right, so I know that was very long. Here's a few simple questions that are from the first chapter. Be sure to go back to the text if you need to. Rewind me, watch me again. I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good day.